It was late on a quiet evening in a small town. The streets were almost empty, the hum of distant traffic faint, and the glow of streetlights stretched across the pavement. For Daniel Carter, a single father in his mid-30s, it was a night like any other. After a long day at work and tucking his son into bed, he would often take a late walk with his dog Max. Those walks were his way of clearing his head, of finding a moment of peace in a life filled with responsibility. Daniel wasn't a hero. He wasn't wealthy or powerful. He was simply a man doing his best to raise his son alone after his wife had passed away years earlier. But that night, fate had something else in store. As Daniel and Max walked along a stretch of road near the outskirts of town, the dog suddenly stopped. His ears perked up and he began barking fiercely, pulling at the leash. At first, Daniel thought it was just another stray animal, but Max wouldn't let up. Kept pulling, barking louder, dragging Daniel toward the side of the road. That's when Daniel saw it. A patrol car sat at an odd angle near the ditch, its front light still glowing faintly, one tire shredded. And lying just feet away from the driver's side door was a woman in uniform, a police officer. She was motionless at first glance, but as Daniel rushed forward, he saw the truth. She was alive barely. Her breathing was shallow, her uniform dark with blood. Daniel froze. His heart raced. He wasn't trained for this. He was just an ordinary man, a father. But as he knelt beside her, he realized he had no choice. "Stay with me," Daniel whispered, his hands trembling as he checked her pulse. Weak but still there, she had been shot. A gunshot wound bled heavily from her side. Daniel knew he had only minutes to act. He looked around. No one was there. No sirens, no backup. Just him, his dog, and this officer's fading life. Instinct took over. Daniel ripped off his jacket, then his shirt, pressing the fabric hard against the wound to slow the bleeding. The officer groaned, her eyes fluttering open for a second. "Though, please," she whispered, her voice fragile. "I've got you," Daniel said firmly, his voice breaking. "You're not alone. Stay with me." He needed more. With no medical supplies, he pulled off his belt and looped it tightly above the wound, making a makeshift tourniquet. Max, still barking, suddenly bolted toward the nearest house, scratching at the door and barking until lights flicked on. Seconds later, a neighbor rushed out and called 911. Daniel never moved from her side. He kept pressure on the wound, whispering to her, keeping her awake. He told her about his son, about Max, anything to keep her focused. "You're going to see tomorrow," he said. "You're going to make it." The minutes felt like hours, but finally the sound of sirens pierced the night. Police cruisers and an ambulance pulled up. Medics rushed to take over, carefully moving the wounded officer onto a stretcher. One paramedic turned to Daniel and said, "If you hadn't done what you did, she wouldn't have made it." Daniel sat back, shaking, his hands covered in blood, his shirt torn to rags. He had never felt so drained, so overwhelmed. As the ambulance drove away, an officer approached him. "So you just saved one of our own." Days passed. Daniel returned to his routine work, caring for his son and walking Max each night. He didn't expect anything in return for what he had done. In his mind, he had only done what any decent person would have, but the story spread. Local news outlets picked it up. Neighbors began calling him a hero. And then one afternoon, Daniel received a call from the hospital. The officer he had saved wanted to see him. When he entered her room, she was sitting up, pale but alive, with monitors beeping steadily behind her. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "You're a Daniel, right?" she asked. He nodded. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you. They told me I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you." Daniel tried to smile, though his throat tightened. "You don't have to thank me. I couldn't walk away." She reached for his hand. "You didn't just save me. You gave me back my future. You gave me a chance to see my family again." A week later, Daniel was invited to the local police station. You thought it was just for a quiet meeting, but when he arrived, he was stunned. The entire department was waiting for him. Officers lined the hall, applauding as he walked in. At the front stood the chief of police, holding a small case. "Daniel Carter," the chief announced, "your bravery, your quick thinking, and your refusal to give up saved the life of one of our own. Today we honor you." He opened the case and pinned a medal of bravery onto Daniel's jacket. The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel stood there, humbled, his son watching from the front row with pride shining in his eyes. In that moment, Daniel wasn't just a single dad struggling to get by. He was a hero in the eyes of his son, in the eyes of the community, and in the eyes of the very officer whose life he had saved. The night when he tucked his son into bed, his boy hugged him tighter than ever. "Dad," the boy whispered, "you're my hero." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had been in the right place at the right time. But deep down, he realized that maybe heroes aren't defined by uniforms or titles. Sometimes they're defined by the choices they make in a single crucial moment. And that's the story of how an ordinary single dad saved the life of a wounded officer and stunned an entire police force. It's a reminder that courage doesn't come from training or strength. It comes from the heart. If this story moved you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more powerful real-life stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Daniel's shoes?